Folks have to know that tomorrow, when we elect the next sheriff, this sheriff will be with us for probably decades. Do people know that? Yes. The sheriff has no term limits. So whatever we choose will be with us for the next couple decades. So let's do that again so this elected official knows what we're talking about. 1,
we are the people.
2,
a little bit louder.
3,
we want justice for our family.
So we have a couple speakers here today to talk about why we are out here. Once again, what's happening tomorrow on June 3rd?
We're voting.
We're voting for
midterm.
Sheriff. We're voting for sheriff. What else are we voting for?
Supervisors.
We're voting for supervisors. Key players and this conversation around Twin Towers, Men's Central Jail, Mira Loma, Wayside Pitches Detention Center, the Linwood jails. They are key players in the conversations that have to do with our loved ones' lives, right?
Right.
My name is Patrisse Cullors, and I'm the Executive Director of Dignity and Power Now. We have many representatives here today. Like I said, this might be small, but we are a mighty rally, and we're going to make sure that every single elected official, every single candidate hears our cries. Some of the main complaints we have. The County Board of Supervisors are talking about building a $1.8 billion jail. That jail is supposed to be looking at implementing 3,300 beds for the mentally ill. There are currently 3,300 beds right now for the mentally ill inside of these jails. That's a problem. That obviously shows that the County Board of Supervisors are not trying to divert anyone from those jails. Absolutely. So we're going to have a speaker, Peter Eliasberg, Legal Director of the ACLU, to speak on that issue. The other issue we have is the amount of brutality and abuse that has happened inside these jails and on the streets by the hands of Los Angeles Sheriff's Department. Our organization and organizations across the county are calling for permanent civilian oversight. We want the next elected sheriff to say yes to this, and we're calling on the next County Board of Supervisors to also say yes to this. So I'll be speaking on that. We also have someone who was in Twin Towers, who lived here, who was a prisoner inside Twin Towers, who's going to speak about what he experienced and what he sees as the next steps in trying to push this county to do the right thing for everybody across Los Angeles. His name is Steve Rogers. Yeah. So I want to bring up Peter Eliasberg, Legal Director.
So tomorrow's election is incredibly important. Just as a little bit of historical context, I moved out here in 1996. In 1998, there was an election that was actually contested between Lee Baca and Sherman Block, who was the sheriff. Of course, Sherman Block died about a week before the election, so the contest became a little bit less exciting. But since that day, there basically has not been a seriously contested sheriff's election. In other words, the voters have not really had a choice. But for the first time since 1998, and really for the first time in memory, there is an election in which there are not only people who come from the Sheriff's Department and grew up in the Sheriff's Department, but people from outside the Sheriff's Department running. And that gives the public, for the first time, a real choice. And it would be a terrible shame if the public didn't exercise its right and utilize that choice, because the stakes are very, very high. What are a couple of the issues? There are a lot of issues, but let me talk about a couple. Specifically, the county is looking at spending $1.8 billion on a new jail. That's a lot of money, and that's a lot of money that could be spent on a lot of other things that would be better for and more valuable for this community. One of the biggest problems with the new jail plan is that it contemplates having a little over 3,300 inmates with severe mental illness in the jails. And as Patrisse said, that's exactly the number of inmates with severe mental illness who are in the jails now. We've known for a very long time that inmates with mental illness do terribly in the jails. They're subject to high levels of physical abuse, sexual abuse. They are subject to horrific treatment, and generally become more resistant to treatment and have terrible mental health outcomes in the jails. And yet for some reason the Board of Supervisors is, drinking the same old Kool-Aid and saying if we just spend more money, we'll finally get decent treatment for people with mental illness in the jails. It's a false promise. It won't happen. And why do we know it won't happen? Because for almost 20 years, the United States Department of Justice has been saying that there are major problems with the treatment of people with mental illness in the jails. The people who have run the jails are basically the same people who have been there since 1997. And the idea that building a new building is going to make this all better is laughable. So what we know is that if we do the right thing, we will divert a substantial number of people with mental illness from jails and the criminal justice system into community treatment. But we're only going to do that if we have sheriff's officials and members of the Board of Supervisors who say, you know what, the recent vote by the Board of Supervisors was a mistake. And we don't want anything nearly this big, and we don't want a jail that contemplates keeping the same number of people who are mentally ill in the jails as we have now. So this is an important issue. It's hugely expensive. It's inhumane what we do to people with mental illness in the jail, but it's going to keep going if we spend a fortune, because do you really think that if the county spends almost $2 billion on a new jail with a lot of beds for people with mental illness, it's going to spend the necessary money on programs in the community for mentally ill? Not likely. So this is an incredibly important issue, and I urge you to tell your friends about it, to talk about it, and to vote tomorrow, and get some candidates who are going to do the right thing for people with mental illness and their families. Thank you.
The people united
Will never be defeated.
Great. Let's get Steve Rogers up here.
How you guys doing? My name's Steve. Spent a fair amount of time inside this jail, 2 years. As the guys in this building here today well know, when you make a decision, sometimes you have to pay the consequences. You have to stick by the decisions you made. And our city's trying to make a decision right now. We're trying to make a decision on a new sheriff. We're trying to make a decision on a new jail. We're trying to make a decision on how much access we're going to allow our public to have to the people that are inside there, the lives that we've entrusted to our city. And what the court has shown us, what the court showed me and the people there, is what they use to measure how people are going to behave is something called track record, your priors. They look at your past history, what's happened in the past. So I think it would be irresponsible for us not to use the same measure to the city when they're going to come before us and ask us, can we build another jail? Can we have more people? Can we imprison more lives? So we look back at what they've done, what they've done with the lives we've given them, what they've done with the jails we've allowed to build them in the past. They built these Twin Towers, what was it, 94, I think? And I believe they were here to replace Men's CJ, and they were going to put up this jail and tear down Men's CJ. This jail's been up for 20 years now, so is Men's CJ. It is still there, and I guess now they're saying that this new jail will be to replace Men's CJ. And I don't know. I mean, if we go by track record, who knows if they're going to tear down Men's CJ? Who knows if there's not just going to be a fifth jail standing in our city? Who knows if there's just not just going to be thousands more lives swallowed up by these giant buildings? These stone giants, they rise up out of the soil here, blocking the path to our city's future, holding on to the ideas of the past, standing in the way of the progressive enlightenment that has come to define Los Angeles. I love this city, but these jails represent everything that is wrong with our community. Shrouded in a veil of secrecy, they keep the doors shut and the blinds closed, and don't let the public see what's going on in there. They say it's too brutal, it's too violent. You wouldn't want to see what's going on, but they never take time to take responsibility for the violence that happens to the people that they're supposed to be watching. I mean, at this point, due to the realignment plan, there's people serving their time in there, and there's people in there that are still going to court that haven't been proven guilty, and they're supposed to be protected. There's unfortunately many of the people that were sworn to protect those people now standing trial in federal courts for the way they have treated these inmates. Not only did they not protect them, they're now standing to answer charges of abuse. This seems like things we should be thinking of. So we're asking simply for civilian people to go in and watch over what's going on in there. We're asking for a civilian oversight committee to watch what's going on in the jail. We're asking, hey, before you put a new jail in, maybe you could do better with what you've been using, with the space you've been given. There's 4 jails in Los Angeles. Do we really need a 5th jail? Do we really need to spend $2 billion on jail when there's people not getting into college? There's people not having jobs on the street? There's dreams going unfulfilled. Do we really need to take more fathers away from their children? More of our sons and our daughters off the street and put them in these buildings? Has anyone stopped to ask how many veterans are in this building?
Right.
How many of our nation's heroes, as they come back from our most current war, they see a $2 billion monstrosity going up in the town that they call home? How many Purple Hearts are waiting downstairs in a bag-marked property? And if they have a hard time getting back into society, if they have a hard time integrating, there's going to be plenty of space for them. So take a good look at these buildings, because once we put up this 5th building, it's not coming down.
Right.
Just like the other ones haven't come down.
And they're going to try to fill it.
So we're here today to say in one voice, we are not going to silently allow this to happen. We are not going to continue to let you take advantage of our trust and our money.
That's right. Thank you. Right.
Thank you, Steve.
Way to go, Steve.
So I want to scan the audience a little bit and our team a little bit. When I first started this work, people said nobody cares about the people who are inside those jails. When I first started this work, people said, well, why talk about prisoners? What's the point? But for those of us who've had to visit our loved ones inside, for those of us who've actually been inside, it's a scar that will never be removed. And unless elected officials hear our voices on a regular basis, unless they hear that people actually care about the people who are inside those jails, the issues are going to continue. These are not new issues. This has been happening for decades. But now is the time, it's a historical moment where we can change that pattern. We can change the course of history tomorrow when we vote. So I wanna pass the microphone to Mr. Mark Anthony Johnson. It's super important that we always have some sort of cultural, artistic situations happening with our work. So I want to bring over Mark Anthony Johnson. He did a piece, it's called The Crop, and it's talking specifically about these jails and the people who've been inside them.
How folks doing? Y'all all right?
Woo!
Yeah.
Word. So this piece is called The Crop. We are the crop. Floating seeds stolen, a bitter breeze sold us here, a bitter sea warned us here. Better be more for us here than this. We are sidewalks cracking, never concede to the bend of your rain and hail. You have captured winter and called it jail, with barcodes that slide shut and steel walls that hide us from the sun. But we are the crop. We declare springtime in the shadows of your twin towers. Our flowers like fists raising from the earth, unhinged by the chafed nostril of a beast snorting melanin, one felony at a time. Deep into its skin, our medicine seeps. Deep into our kin, our medicine steeps. For every flower hemmed up, every broken stem stuck in your concrete altar. Your memorial. To beaten slaves, left for vultures, built a cage and gave the scavengers holsters. Beat a gangster, but I guess nobody told you. You can't beat a dandelion without spreading the soldiers. Can't grind the herb without dripping the potion. Dignity's the verb, so we spit it like a prophecy. Chew it like a poultice and put it on you topically. Use support statistics, management overlooked it. Rampant deputy clicks with no oversight, just stitches to trace their footprints. But all things must fall, and this be our harvest. We are microphones darting from the soil. Dandelion check. 1, 2, roots and robusts rumbles of the earth. Soon there will be no silence. There will be no sirens. There will be no silence. There will be no cracked ribs, last breaths, or broken teeth left in undisclosed, unmonitored, or gray areas. Dandelion check. 1, 2. Dandelion check. 1, 2. There will be no busloads of stolen kinfolk or payphone birthdays, decades without windows or hugs through glass pane. Dandelion check, 1-2, dandelion check, 1-2. From Linwood Jail to Miraloma, moratorium on hematomas, rolling up on Mint Central, shut it down and feed the roses, repurpose its iron riches, take a breath and take a picture, then it's off to the next harvest. It's a celebration. Pitches, dandelion check, dandelion check, dandelion check, 1-2. We got the jail surrounded, and there's nothing left but.
So I want to just take a moment to get a sense from the team here. How many of you all have had a loved one inside one of the county jails? Raise your hand. Raise your hand high. How many of you all have actually been inside these jails? Raise your hand. How many of you have someone with a mental illness in your family? How many of you have had someone be inside Twin Towers suffering from mental illness? Okay. So we are all impacted, correct? We're all impacted by what happens to the people in our society. Unfortunately, Los Angeles has taken the route to throw away and warehouse people with mental illness. My story is, my brother was incarcerated here inside Twin Towers, actually diagnosed inside Twin Towers. He was diagnosed and he was also brutalized inside these jails. The impact that had on my family, the impact it had on him, has been long-standing. There is a deep crisis right now inside LA County around how it relates to people with mental illness. There's homelessness, Twin Towers, and the psych ER. Those are the three sort of places folks have been thrown out to. We have an opportunity. Oftentimes here in LA County, we just think, well, what can we do? What's our voice? How is our voice going to matter in this? Our voice is going to matter because people do show up. We have media that's been here today, right? We have community members that said, you know what, I'm going to take my time out on this Monday and show up and talk to folks. Peter said, have conversations, join an organization, fight for different policies. And most of all, I would say fight for a cultural shift in how we all look at people with mental illness. There is a deep divide here in this country, but in this county in particular, that has allowed for people to be warehoused. People with mental illness that deserve care. They deserve full coverage. They deserve the mental health care that they were born into. But instead, we choose, the County Board of Supervisors chooses to waste taxpayers' money on putting people inside jail cells. So it's our time. Right, Los Angeles? It's our time.
That's right.
It's our time to make a different choice. And when we elect the next person, the next sheriff, the next supervisors, if they don't do the right thing, then we got to be out here again. The fight isn't over tomorrow. It isn't over in November. It's only over when the changes have been made. So every single one of us has to integrate that and have those conversations. So I want to open up the microphone now for folks who just want to share. We're out here, it's 5 o'clock, we got some time. People just want to share any words of encouragement, any thoughts that they have about getting out the vote tomorrow, about their experience here inside these jails. We're bringing up big money now.
Big money! Hello guys, all right. First and foremost, I would hope that Mike from the ACLU would strongly consider having the Board of Supervisors, the new elected officials, the new elected supervisors, rescind that decision on the new jails. If we can get them with the new ones that come in, if we can get them to rescind it, vote to rescind it, we're in the mix. In addition to that, I have to look at what we're looking at in terms of these sheriffs that have to go through this system, this prison system, before they can come out on the public streets. That teaches hate, rage, and anger within them, and it's embedded into their membranes. And so what we have to do is curtail that kind of behavior. our goal, our job, is to make sure that we strategize to get them to realize that in spite of all past years' adversity, success can still be obtained. So I'm here today to share with you all as to how we can stand tall as men and women for the future, for the 21st century. We have to look out for the best interests of ourselves and our children's grandchildren forever. And if not now, then when? So I'm here today to let you know that even though Chris Brown was released today in prison, we have a great deal of them that are and that deserve to be released today. And so when they come into our society, we've got to make sure that they can walk into an infrastructure that is well in hand to where we can put them to work. We have a great deal of construction work going on. We don't want them to be part of building a new prison cell. We want them to be part of building new metro rails along Crenshaw Boulevard and other places. We have a great deal of work that needs to be done in terms of mending and fixing our streets and roadways and bridges. So I want you to spread the word, what you heard, as to how we can strategize to get our people to realize that in spite of all past years' adversity, success can be obtained. That's all of my time. Thanks for your time. This is Big Money Griff, over and out.
I want to bring Luis up. He actually just joined the rally right now.
Hi everybody. My name is Luis Patrisse. I was just released from here a week ago. I came today to pick up my property, and I want to just say something about this jail. It is a nasty, dirty, horrible place, and that there's some of the greatest people I've met are up there. People who care, who would come up to me and be like, "Hey man, don't worry about it, man. Everything's gonna be okay." I just want to put away the negative shade about people in there. We're not all bad. That's right. We made a mistake. I'm facing trial on the 26th. I'm going up against a felony charge, but I made the mistake. I'm taking full responsibility for it, and I'm going back in there probably. But that doesn't really, I know I made that mistake, and I'm here to pay my price for it. But now I have to face starting in life as an adult, as a felon. Last month, I barely got my first apartment with my girlfriend. I'm working 2 jobs, and now I'm facing losing everything, and living inside there. But you know what? That's my fault. I understand that. I made decisions about that. But that doesn't mean the people in there need to be treated the way we were treated. When you walk into that door, and I know everyone who's been in there has seen it too, there's a big sign in front that says Sheriff's Department is against all form of bigotry, racism, sexism, and any form of the discrimination. But when you go in there, the first thing they ask you, white, black, or Hispanic, and they shove you in a room, and then they feed one of them first, one of those groups, to create that divide in there, to create that hatred, because they know if we were all worked together, that would not be the same kind of place it was. But they want to keep us all in this angry mood, in this horrible, horrible feeling where we hate each other. But you know what? They weren't able to do that. All of us in there, we knew what they were trying to do. And we were there for each other, comforting each other, giving each other's heart out. I sat with people there who were going to life in prison. And I had a normal conversation with them just like I would anybody. People who are in there for murder. And the only thing I can say is some of those people were the best people I've ever met. That's all I have to say about that. Don't forget about those people in there, because they're in there living. They're in there.
I want to just take a moment, just off of that spirit, to take a moment of silence for people who are currently inside, for those of us who've been inside, who've been directly impacted by the monster. That's these jails. So on the count of 3, let's take a moment of silence. 1, 2, 3. Thank you so much, y'all.
Alright, hello, my name is Omar, and I am a staff, ex-student at Youthville Boyle Heights. Living in the east side, having family members living in East LA, they're being brutalized. We had just a student last week that came in. He missed a whole week of class When he walks in, I ask him, where have you been? He says, hey Omar, I just got my ass kicked by some sheriffs. He came in, his face, his eye one was swollen, his face was purple. And I told him, hey man, let's do something. I was like, nah man, I don't want them to come harass me after. I don't want to be involved. I'm going to be in East LA all the time, all my life, because I have my family there. I don't want to go back to having a sheriff constantly harass me. Last year in December, we had one of our students' close friend shot 4 times in the back and 3 times in the front. He was rolled over and actually shot 3 times in the front. These are the things that our community, our people are facing, and not only us brown folks, but black folks. We're constantly being brutalized by the system. We've been thrown in jail all over LA County and all over the U.S. There's 19,000 of us in prison right now. 80% of them, or 90% of our people of color. We need to stand up and fight against that. So we have a couple of students here from Youthfield. Us at least in Boyle Heights, we have the Metro, the Gold Line that is dividing our community. We have sheriffs that are constantly harassing young people. They stand outside of at least the stops that are more frequent by young people, and they're constantly ticketed. They're being criminalized, and they're being pushed away to these prisons because they can't afford to pay a fucking ticket of $250. One, we were being sent to jail. We were being ticketed for not going to school, and now we're being ticketed for going to school. We stand up, unite, and fight against all forms of oppression, and that prison is one of those symbols. So, thank you very much.